Yeah. So it says, yeah, Node.js is see what Node.js essentially is that normally when you run JavaScript code, it runs within your browser, right? Let's say we are on this website. So this website is running some JavaScript code internally. The way you can run some more code is you can click inspect and click on console. And once you click on console, you can start typing JavaScript code here. So you can do, for example, you can do simple things like 1+1, or you can define a function. So function add takes two arguments x and y, and then returns x plus y, right? And then call the function add with 2 and 3. So that's one way to run JavaScript code. But normally how JavaScript code is run is, normally how JavaScript code is run is that along with this HTML file, there is a JavaScript file that is going to be included. So the way you can check that is you can click on view page source. Okay, and you can notice here that if you check the head tab, inside the head tab, you should have some kind of a script. Let's see. Okay, this yeah. So you can see here, there is some HTML here which actually rendered this page, but there is also something called a script tag at the end, which points to a main.js script, right? And this is the main.js script. So what happens is that when the browser loads this page, after that it renders this HTML, and then it also loads up this JavaScript file, and it executes all the JavaScript in this file, right? So essentially what it is doing is you can even read through the file and try to understand what's happening here. So looks like, there's a bunch of things happening, and finally they are checking, basically they're checking versions. Okay, they're checking that they're able to get they're able to capture the OS. Let me just zoom in here. So they're able to somehow capture the OS, and then based on the OS, you can see here on this page, it says download for Mac OS, right? So just by HTML itself, you cannot figure out that you should show Mac OS here. You have to actually look into the browser information and get that. So that's what is happening here. So if it is a Mac OS, it changes the version number. If it is a Windows, it changes the one version number. If it's Linux, it changes the one. Okay, so that's how that's how JavaScript normally works on any browser. But what Node.js allows you to do is Node.js allows you to run JavaScript on your terminal. Okay, so here I am now. I'm here on my terminal. Okay, and I can install Node.js. So you can just download the latest version of Node.js and then install it. I already have it installed. Once you have it installed, what you can do is you can type Node, and that actually gives you something quite similar to what you get when you do inspect element and open up the console, right? So you can write the same JavaScript code here. Oops. Yeah, right. So you can define functions. Sorry, that was Python. JavaScript is add xy, return x plus y. Okay, so now if I do add 3, 4, that's going to return 7. All right. So that's the first thing to understand. Node.js, what it essentially works is that it takes away the browser's UI. It takes away HTML, CSS, all those things. All it says is that, okay, you give me some JavaScript as input, and I'm going to give you some JavaScript as output. Okay. I'm going to give you the output of that JavaScript by running it. So this is one way to run Node.js. You just type Node once you have it installed. Oops, I don't know how to exit this. Okay, so I exited by Control D finally. So if you have Node, you just type Node and then you can type JavaScript code. But a more interesting way to run Node is that you can define a JavaScript file. So I can maybe open up a JavaScript file saying myscript.js. Okay, so now myscript.js, what I can do here is I can write some code. So I'm just gonna zoom in. Function add xy, and then again return x plus y. And let me call add with 2, 3 and let me log that to console. Okay. So once again, I've defined a script. Now what I can do is I can go, so now you can see that I have the script here, my script.js. So I'm simply going to do node my script.js. Okay, and that runs it. So everybody with me so far? Any questions? You've all seen basic JavaScript, right?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah. So all we're doing is the JavaScript that you would normally include as a script tag within your HTML code. We are now writing it in a normal file and we are executing it on the terminal, right? By saying node myscript.js, and then that basically runs that code. Okay. So let's go one step further now. What node also lets you do is it lets you export certain functions. So what you can do here is you can say module.exports equals add. Okay. What that does is now what I can do is I can say node, and then I can do var add equals require my script. Okay. So what it does is when I say require my script, this is a way of node's way of organizing code. Okay. This is not how it's done in the browser, but this is how Node.js does it. So you can say var add equals require my script. What this does is it basically loads up the entire code of my script, and then whatever is in module.exports is put inside this variable. Okay, so I could just as well have called this add123, and it would still get this particular add function. Okay, so when I do var add123 equals require my script. Oh, oops, sorry, I should be doing dot slash my script, not my script. Require dot slash my script to indicate that I want to use it in the current folder. So now let's see what's add123. So you can see that add123 is actually a function with the name add, right? So I can call add123 with the arguments 2, 3, oops, 2, 3, and still get the value out 5. Okay. So this is Node.js's way of organizing code. So in fact, I can go one step further, and what I can do is I can say, hey, I have, oops, let me just open up this folder now. Okay, so I have one file here, myscript.js. I can create another file here, myscript2.js. Okay, so what I can do is from my script, I can use from my script, I can export add, and then I can import something into myscript2. So I can say var add equals require dot slash myscript. So now the same add function is available there, and then I can define var add 20, sorry, function add 27, which will basically add 27 to any given number. Returns add x and 27. Okay, and then I can write module.exports equals add 27. So what have I done here? I've taken my script, written some code here, exported the function add. Then I've written my script 2 where I've imported the function, where I've included the function from dot slash my script, and then I've used it to define another function, and now I've exported that function, right? So now it is starting to look a lot like Python, you might think, right? Where we are exporting some things out of, in Python you don't need to explicitly export, but in JavaScript in Node.js you do. So you can explicitly export something, and then you can explicitly import it in another function, another file or another module, and then use it to export it, and then use it and then export something else out of there. Okay. So let's just quickly verify that that works as well, right? So var, I'll just call it my func equals require dot slash my script 2. Okay, so now what I'm doing is I'm requiring my script 2, and then that automatically requires my script. Okay, and note that I don't need to put in .js here. Okay, so now let's see what my func is. So my func is add 27. So if I call my func with the value 30. So that should return 57, right? Okay. So far so good. So this is like the very basics of Node.js. You know, you take away the browser, take away the UI. Sorry, there's a question.
Can we export multiple functions?
Sorry.
Can we export multiple functions?
Yeah, you can export multiple functions as well. That's a good question. So the way to do it is this. What you would then do is you would not import. Let's say I have add 27, and then I have add 42, where I add 42. Okay. So normally what we would do in this case is we would export an object. So what you would do is you would say add 27. Actually, you don't need this in JavaScript. Add 27 is for the key add 27 I import add 27. For the key add 42, I import add 42. Okay. So now I've imported two functions. Now I've exported two functions using an object. All right. Now what you can do is let's go back to Node. Now what I'll do is I'll just call it var myscript2. I'll just call it myscript2 because now it has a multiple functions equal to require / myscript2. Okay, so let's check out myscript2 now. So you can see that it has two functions now, right? And then now if I want to use add 27, I do myscript2 dot add 27 to 30, and then myscript2 dot add 27 to let's say add 42 to 30, right? So this is the part. This is what you do when you want to export multiple functions. You basically export a dictionary or an object. In Python, it's called dictionary. In JavaScript, it's called object, which has keys and values, right? And you can even rename some of the functions. Like your original function may have been named add 27, but you can just call it like add 27, and then instead of using myscript2.add 27, you would have to write myscript2.add 27, right? But anyway, normally the convention is we keep the same names so that things don't get too confusing. Okay, so that is like a very quick tutorial on Node.js. Now let's go one step further. And now what happens is that you might have written some code that you want to use in multiple projects. That there is some helper code you've written that is used all the time. So this is where there is something called npm comes into picture. So npm essentially is a package manager for Node, similar to pip. Apart from that, it's also a registry. So what you can do is you can just Google npm. So you'll find that you'll find the npm.js website. Let me just post some links here so that you can go back and review these later. So that's Node.js. That's oops. That's npm. Okay. So now what does npm do is npm actually contains a bunch of packages that you can use. For example, one common package is there's a library called React, right? But this is like somewhat advanced. So maybe let's work with a smaller one. Maybe let's look at something that, I don't know, some math related functions. Actually, I'll show you a package that I like. It's called Lodash. Okay, so Lodash, what it has is Lodash is essentially a bunch of useful functions that you might use from time to time, right? For example, if we check the documentation of Lodash, so you can see that Lodash has a bunch of functions. Let's see documentation. Yeah. So for example, this is one useful function. So Lodash has a function called flatten. What it lets you do is you give it an array, you give it an array which has like a bunch of brackets inside, like this heavily nested array 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. And what it does is it removes certain brackets. Like yeah, so it removes, like you can see that I passed in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but 2, 3, 4, 5 was 2, 3, 4 was inside brackets. So it basically removed 2, 3, 4 from brackets, and then it removed 5 from brackets as well, right? So this is what is called flattening an array. This is like a single level flatten, and then there is something called flatten deep. What this does is this can flatten all the different depths of the arrays, right? So like here I have a function 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is the input that I'm passing in. There are bunch of lists inside, list of list of list, and then when I call flatten deep on Lodash, then it gives me back this very flat array. Okay, so it removes all the brackets inside. Now somebody has implemented this function and they want to share it with us. How do we use it? Okay, so the way to do that is by using npm. So when you install Node.js, it also gives you npm by default. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a folder called let's say Lodash test. Okay, go into the folder Lodash test, and I'll tell you why I created the folder in just a moment. Okay, now I want to install Lodash. So the way to install Lodash is normally what you do is you say npm install Lodash, Lodash. Okay. When I do that, what it does is it creates, it downloads all the code for Lodash that has been uploaded here to npm. Okay. So yeah. So now you can see if I do ls here, you will see that a new folder has been created, a folder called node modules. So essentially what happens here is that there was some code which somebody created and put up on npm. Now when you do npm install, that basically downloads that code, just like installing a Python package, but instead of installing it globally, it actually installs it within that folder, right? This is the reason that I created the Lodash test folder, because I didn't want to put this on my desktop. So it installs it within a folder called node modules. So maybe let's check out the node modules folder. So I'll just open up this directory in VS Code. Okay, so there's something called a package log.json. We can ignore that for now, but let's look at in node modules. So there you see in node modules there's a single folder called Lodash. All right, and in the single folder called Lodash, there are a bunch of different files, lots of them. So basically what they've done is for each of the functions they've written, they've put it in a separate file, right? But the file that is of interest to us, there are two files actually. Well, there's a readme, you can read that, but that's the same thing that you see on the npm website. There is a package.json file, right? There's a package.json file which essentially tells Node.js that how is this particular package of files organized, right? Because there are so many files here. So here there are a bunch of different properties, but the important property is main. So main, it says that there is a main file called lodash.js. Okay, so I'm going to go find that file called lodash.js. So you can see that there is a file called lodash.js, and then inside it there's a bunch of code. There's a lot of code, right? Lots and lots of code. So essentially what this does is, like, this actually has it has basically pulled in all the code from all the different files, and it's giving you a single file to export. So this is, in a way, it is quite similar to our MyScript one file, that it has a bunch of functions and then it exports those functions somewhere. Okay, but except that it is organized in a very complicated fashion, right? But basically it's no different from the file that we were looking at earlier. So it is the lodash.js file is quite similar to the MyScript one file that we had. Okay, so now let's say we want to start using this Lodash module that we have. So I can create a new file. So again, I create a file called myscript.js. Okay, I create a file called myscript.js, and then I can say var lodash equals require. So remember, it is in /node modules /lodash slash lodash.js, and I don't need to put the lodash.js. I can just put lodash. Okay. Maybe let's test it out in the command line first. Okay. So var lodash equals, let me just get that. Okay. So let's see lodash. So you can see that it has a bunch of different files, a bunch of different functions. So now I can do lodash dot flatten deep, and then give it that input 1, 2, 3, maybe just put 4 inside, and then 5. Okay. So there you go. It flattens it out, right? So, and if you want to look at the code of flatten deep, you can probably try and find flatten deep somewhere here. If you open up node modules, open up lodash, you'll find flatten deep somewhere here. Flatten deep, right? So this is the code for flatten deep. You can see it's exactly what we had. It basically requires something, it implements a function, and then it exports it using flatten deep. And then lodash.js basically just brings in all of these files and then exports it in a single object. Okay. So far so good. So the same way we used it here, we can actually use it in the script as well. So we can just say lodash.flatten deep, and in the script we would have to do console.log because otherwise it won't print it out. But yeah. So now if I do node myscript.js, you can see that it prints out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So what npm essentially does is it simply gives you a way of sharing code online with other people and reusing other people's code. Okay. So now one convention that has come up is that whenever you have something in /node modules, you don't need to write it. Okay, so you can just write lodash/lodash. I've skipped the node modules part. So what Node.js will do is every time you write require you don't put in a dot slash. So what it will start doing is it will start looking at the node modules folder, right? So in this case, the node modules folder, it will start looking for lodash, and inside lodash, it will find the lodash file. So let me just save that and let me run it again just to verify and to prove to you it still runs. Right. So what it does is when we are saying require lodash/lodash, it is finding inside node modules, finding the folder lodash, inside it finding the file lodash.js. One another convention is that if you see, remember inside the lodash folder, we had a package.json file. Where is that package.json? Yeah. Remember there's a package.json file where it specified a main file. Okay. So now whenever there is a main file, so either it can be a main file mentioned in package.json, or it can be a file with the name index.js. These are both conventions that it follows. So what you can do is if there is a main file specified, then to access that main file, you can skip writing that main file's name, right? It will simply it will look into node modules, find the folder lodash, then it will read the package.json and see if there is a main file. And if you've not specified a particular file here, it is directly going to load the main file. Okay. So this require lodash is essentially equivalent to saying require dot slash node module slash lodash, right? So this is just a convention. So now it is starting to look very much like a library kind of usage, right? The same thing you would do in Python, that import OS. Similarly, you are saying require lodash. Okay. So let's just verify that this runs as well. So there, I run my script.js, and once again, this runs. Okay. So now we have learned the basics of Node.js and npm and package sharing, right? I will also post a link to Lodash if you want to play around with it. It's a pretty good library, and you'll probably end up using some of these functions no matter what project you're working on. Okay. So now that's Node.js for you. Now the next topic that we need to cover is something called ES6. Or actually, let's actually jump to something called TypeScript directly. Yeah, because that will cover what is ES6 and all that. Okay, so now what's TypeScript? So, so the problem with JavaScript is that, see, the problem with JavaScript is that when you define a function, let's say I define a function add xy, okay, return x plus y, and let's say I export this. Let me comment that out for a second. Module.exports equals add. Okay, so now the problem with the JavaScript is that if I open up node and then I say var add equal to require dot slash my script. Okay, now I can actually call add with like 3 arguments and it'll work. I can call add with no arguments and it'll give an error, right? So the problem with JavaScript is that this can lead to bugs, that there is no way to check whether the function you are calling it properly or not, right? The only way you'll find out is when something breaks in production, when you get an error in production, right? So this is where something called Microsoft created something called TypeScript, which is essentially a superset of JavaScript. So what do I mean by that? By that I mean that all JavaScript code is still valid TypeScript code. But what TypeScript lets you do is that it allows you to add some types to your functions and to your variables, right? So what these types can let you do is that these types can let you inform the interpreter, the JavaScript interpreter, that you want your functions to be used in a certain way. Okay, so let's get started. Let's see how to use it, and probably that will make more sense. And so here's the thing: TypeScript itself is again a npm project, right? So TypeScript has been actually written in JavaScript. If in fact, if you see the let's find the GitHub page for TypeScript. I'll show you something interesting here. So if you see the GitHub page of TypeScript, you will notice that it is actually written in TypeScript itself. So which is crazy, right? So what they did essentially, and this is generally how compilers, so TypeScript in a sense is a compiler. What it does is you can write the code with types and everything, and then TypeScript compiler will take all that code and convert it into normal JavaScript code, right? And how they wrote TypeScript itself is that they first started writing some JavaScript. Using that, they created a tool called TypeScript. Using and then they rewrote the code of TypeScript itself in TypeScript and used the first version of TypeScript to compile it back to JavaScript, right? So essentially, the compiler is used to build itself, and yeah, it's kind of funny, but that is a common pattern that is followed in a lot of languages. Okay, but in the end, what that means for us is that TypeScript itself is also written in JavaScript, and the way you install TypeScript is simply by installing it using npm, right? So I can do, so let me come back here. Oops. Okay, so let me paste this command. So now you can see here that what it says is I'm putting in npm install -g TypeScript. Now what's this -g? -g actually stands for minus minus global, right? So I told you that by default, when we install an npm package, when we install an npm package, it gets installed in the current directory inside the node modules folder, right? But sometimes you might want to install a certain package globally, right? If you want to install a certain package globally, then you specify this flag minus minus global or simply -g, right? What that does, let's see, it's going to install TypeScript. I think this will take some time, but essentially you can see here that what it has done is it has put all of this inside /user local lib node modules, right? So if I check the node modules here, that is not affected. It still has Lodash. But if I check /user /local /lib/node modules, and then this path may be different for different people. You might have it different if you're using Linux. This might be different if you are using Mac. This might be different if you're using Windows. This might be different. For me, it is this path user local lib node modules. Okay, so you can see here, this is my global path where node modules are installed, and this is where and this is where we have a TypeScript as well. Okay. And similar to Lodash, TypeScript again is a JavaScript function. But there is one other difference apart from this. But by the way, just quick note here. When you run this npm install -g TypeScript, you might actually get an error because sometimes you get that error when you install Python libraries globally and it says you have to run it with sudo. That's because you need to fix some permissions. So you need to do a similar thing to fix permissions for npm modules. So let me just share that link with you. If you get this error, you can actually fixing npm permissions. Yeah, so I'll just share this link with you. Okay, so just watch this video if you are getting an error while installing npm. Okay, let me just also grab the TypeScript link for you. And with TypeScript, what I will also suggest is you should read through the documentation. There's a tutorial that walks you through TypeScript in 5 minutes. That is pretty much all you will need for our purposes. But yeah, it's good to read through. Okay. Anyway, so back to where we were. We have installed TypeScript. Now, apart from installing a bunch of files inside node modules, what it has also inside the global node modules, what it has also done is it has installed a couple of binaries. So it has installed something called TSC and it has installed something called TS server, right? So if I type TSC, so you can see here now I have a command called TSC available on my terminal, right? So this is another thing that node modules can do, that they can specify that there is a certain file which is supposed to be executed as a command line tool, and when you install it using npm, they get added to a binary path, basically your system path, so that you can use them from the terminal, right? And the way this is done, again, if you just check the code for TypeScript, this also has a package.json file, right? Here it specifies a main file. The main file is typescript.js, but here it also specifies a bin, right? So in the bin file, so again, what npm does is it downloads the TypeScript package, it puts it into node modules, it reads the bin key from the package.json, and then it takes this file ./bin/tsc and it puts it into the system path so that it becomes available for you to run, right? So the reason I'm explaining all this is it's all just JavaScript files sitting here and there being linked off from here and there, right? So there's no magic happening here. Right, okay, but finally we have this tsc file. So let's write a simple TypeScript code. So let's start with the TypeScript in 5 minutes. So you can see here, this is a so this is a TypeScript function. Let's see. Okay, so this is a TypeScript function. I'm going to just copy this TypeScript function and then put it here. So yeah, let's say I create a new file, call it greeter.ts. So TypeScript files have to be named .ts. Okay, so I create a function greeter person, hello person, and then create a variable called user, and then call it Jane user. And then here what it's doing is it is putting it to the document.body. We won't do that because we are actually running it in Node.js. So we will just log it. So, okay. So now we've created a file greeter.ts, and we run it. And we have written so it's still some JavaScript code. There is no change here, right? Only thing you might notice is instead of var, I'm using let. That's just different JavaScript. Different JavaScript. It's like a new level of JavaScript or a new version of JavaScript. But either way, so there's a function and there is a variable, and then I'm logging it, right? So now what I can do is I can do tsc greeter.ts. So it does not actually run the file, but what it does is it creates a file. What should it do? Yeah, so it should create a file greeter.js. Yeah, so you can see here there's a file greeter.js, right, which has the exact same code. Okay, so this is what I mean by TypeScript as a compiler. It takes some TypeScript code and converts it to JavaScript code. And remember, I mentioned that TypeScript code is also JavaScript code. So yeah, so basically, sorry, JavaScript code is also TypeScript code. So basically, this is valid TypeScript code. But I can actually make it. Let me get rid of this greeter.js file. Okay, so what I can actually do is I can start making this TypeScript. What does that mean? I can say that this person is, you can see here, is a string. Okay, and then hello person. So basically this function also returns a string. So now it is starting to look like Java or C++, right? You can specify these types. Remember, this is not a valid JavaScript code. If I were to run it directly in Node, it would not run. See, it says there's a syntax error that it's not expecting a token, but this is valid TypeScript code. So I've written something, okay, and I'm saying that this user is also a string. And let's say I create a function, I create a variable var message, okay, and I call it with greeter with user. So that's okay, no problems there. But if I call it without greeter, it starts to show me an error already, right? And then remember, the same error was not there for this. Like I can do add without any arguments, but there are no errors here. Whereas if I start calling greeter without an argument, it shows an error, right? In fact, if I try to compile it back to JavaScript now, if I do tsc greeter.ts, see, it's showing me an error. The function greeter argument for person was not provided, right? So even if I provide an argument, so now I've provided an argument here. Let's see what it does. So see here, once again, it says, oops, I think I did not save it.
No, it's like it's giving that it's expecting one argument, but you have provided two.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and even if I just provide a number instead of a string, that will give an error as well, right? So once again, if I do greeter.ts, there you go. See, now argument of type 2 is not assignable to the parameter string of type string, right? So yeah, so this is the entire benefit of TypeScript essentially. That what it lets you do is it lets you write slightly better code, which will not have as many errors. That all these errors will be caught during compilation. But let's give it a proper answer here. Let's give it a proper. Okay, let me just remove this once again. Okay, so now once again, now I've created the TypeScript file. Now if I do tsc and if I do greeter.ts, now it's going to compile successfully. And now it creates a greeter.js file. Okay, so now this greeter.js file, you can see that it is similar to the greeter.ts file, except it does not have all the different type related information. Okay, and normally what we do is we don't put it inside we don't put it in the same folder. Normally what you would have is that you would have a folder called src, inside which you would have the greeter.ts file, and then you would want to create a folder called build, or sometimes it's called lib, and this is where you would want to generate the greeter.js file, right? So let me see if I can do that. tsc src, let's just check the options once. So out dir is a directory. Okay, so let's see. tsc, src, and then out dir is build. Okay, I think I need to provide a okay. So now you can see that, sorry, it should go inside the lib. I should have said lib. I'm sorry. Yeah. So now inside src we have greeter.ts, and inside lib we have greeter.js. Okay. Now one final thing I want to tell you is a common convention is that we put inside, we create an src folder, and then inside it we create an index.ts file. Okay. And then inside index.ts file is where we would write our code, and we would import all the other functions that we are using, right? So index.ts is basically what is called an entry point, and then it will import all of the other files and folders. So what I can do is from greeter.ts, I will simply export module.exports equal to greeter. Yeah, I think in TypeScript you can simply write exports, I believe. No, okay. Okay, so the TypeScript syntax is slightly different. In TypeScript, what we do is instead of module.exports, we write export default. Okay, that's just a difference. So what I will suggest is you can read the documentation on how the imports and exports work. But anyway, but what we're doing is we are saying export default greeter. Okay, similarly, I can create another file. Let's say greeter2.ts. Here I'm going to put in another function greeter2. Here I'm going to say goodbye. All right. And inside index.ts, I can now import. So I can do var greeter equal to require /greeter. But once again, the TypeScript syntax is different. So what we write is import greeter from /greeter instead of require. Okay, similarly we write import greeter2 from /greeter2. All right. I think I didn't name it properly. Okay. So yeah, so in index.ts, I am importing greeter, and I'm importing greeter2, and then let me define another function. Let's say send greetings, which takes a name, which is a string, and returns a string. And what it does is it returns greeter name, and then followed by a new line, followed by greeter2 name. Okay. And finally, from this, I'm going to export default, send greetings. Okay. So what I've done here is essentially my index.ts file, index.ts file invokes all the other files. And then there might be multiple folders which it might be invoking. Right. So there might be a structure like that. So let me just get rid of the lib folder once again. Okay. Once again, I'm going to just do tsc, src. So this time I'll just write src and let's see what happens. Okay, I think I have to put in this probably. No. Let me see if there's a way to.
Star, whatever.
No, I don't want to do star. I actually want to do. I wanted to pick up index.js, but okay, never mind. Let me just do src/index.js, index.ts, and out there lib. Okay, cool. So now this is done. So now we have the lib directory. And now you can see that it started with index.js. It started converting index.js, but then it found that index.js imports greeter and imports greeter too. So therefore it imported, then now you can see here, it has converted it into the normal imports and exports, right? This code is a little bit more complicated than what we normally see, because like the module system and the export system in TypeScript and in normal JavaScript in Node.js are slightly different. But essentially, this is what is happening, right? So you can see here that there is a greeter function that is there, and then it is exported as exports default. Okay, just ignore that default part for a moment. Similarly, there is a greeter2 function. It is exported as export default. Then in the index.js, what it does is it imports greeter1, greeter2, and then remember, if we exported it as default, the way to get it is by calling default on that import, right? So there's that, it follows this pattern that it whatever you export is exports as default, and then it imports that as default here. But it's essentially the same thing that we would have done normally in normal JavaScript, right? And then there is something here that this is basically to ensure that you can use it when you are using imports, etc. Right? So it's just some implementation detail. We don't need to worry about these things at this point. Okay, so now that is a TypeScript. That is TypeScript. Okay, so now let's do one final thing, and then we will close here for today. So what we will do now is we will actually take this code that we have written, greeter and greeter2, and then we will publish it to npm. Okay, and then we publish it to npm, and then we will use it elsewhere in a different project, right? So we have written some code in TypeScript inside our src folder, and what we've done is we've taken that src folder code and we've put it into the lib folder. Now the lib folder contains the actual JavaScript code, which we should probably be publishing to npm, right? So this is where what we can do is you just go to npmjs.com. You click on join, and you can sign up here. I think I'm already a member, so I'll probably just be able to log in. Let me see. Okay, I don't remember my password, but either way, my password is actually cached. So what you do is the first time you log in into npm, you can see it tells you what are the instructions you need to follow to publish a package. Actually, let's just Google that. Yeah, so you click. So once you've set up a packet, once you've set up a password, what you can do is you can do npm login, and then there you'll have to put in your password. So username, password. Okay. Then now we have a package. Now we need to first create a package. So you can do npm init inside a directory. So what that will do is that will create a package.json file. So let me call it. I'm actually going to call it greeter test for now. Version 1.0.0. Just publishing something with TypeScript. So it asks for an entry point, right? So remember the entry point, this is where like other packages will start using your package. So in my case, we are writing code inside src. We are putting it inside lib after converting into normal JavaScript. So I'll just put in lib.index.js, right? I'll get rid of this myscript.js file for now. Okay, then it's going to ask you, let me also do another small thing here. I'm just going to initialize a Git repository here and just do a simple commit. So I've just committed, oops, sorry, that was a mistake. So normally what you want to do is, like, if you're working with a Git repository, you probably don't want to commit your node modules folder, because that is going to have hundreds or maybe thousands of files, and that is going to just blow up your Git repository. So what you do is, if you're creating a Git repository, what you want to do is you want to set up a git ignore file. So I'm going to set up a git ignore file here. And inside the git ignore file, I'm going to ignore the node modules. What this says is that you're telling Git that don't ignore node modules, don't include node modules, and also probably don't include Git, because don't include the lib folder, because the src is what contains the code, right? And that is what we should really be concerned about, because the lib folder can be generated from src, and then the node modules can be generated by installing the right packages. And I'll tell you how to share the list of packages also. Okay, but I've git ignored these two. Now if I do git add dot git commit -m initial commit. Okay, so now you can see that it has only committed these 5 files. The git ignore, there's a package log, ignore that for a moment. There's an src folder and the files inside it. Okay, so anyway, let's continue this npm init. So there's no test command. Git repository, it should have picked up, but let me just go back on this. Npm init, greeter test 1.0.0, just publishing something with TypeScript. Entry point was wrong, sorry. Entry point was lib/index.js. Test command, there's no test command. Git repository, well, okay, let's just skip that. Keywords, let's say TypeScript. So these are just things that you can put in. A license, yeah. So and it'll tell you, is this okay? And what this will do is this will create a package.json file in your directory, right? So you can see here that it creates a greeter.test, it creates a version, it creates a description and a bunch of things like that, right? And it has a dependency called Lodash. So it is automatically picked up that you've installed the Lodash for Lodash inside node modules. So now instead of sharing the entire node modules file, what you can just share is simply the package.json file, and this will automatically install Lodash every time this library is installed. Okay, and just to sort of show you that this is still working, so I can also import Lodash from /Lodash, right? Okay, now it should just be Lodash, and yeah, and maybe I'll just put in here another line, and this just say Lodash dot Latin D 1 2. Yeah, okay. So now I'm also using Lodash here. Let me just run that and see. tsc src/index. So there you go, right? So I can even use external packages inside. I can even use external packages inside. Okay. So, okay, now we've created a package. Now we are ready to publish it. I've included the dependencies in this package. I have included that it is the lib directory, that lib/index.js is the file to be tracked, right? So now I'm just going to npm run publish. Okay, sorry, npm publish. So what this does is this picks up my credentials. It picks up the lib folder, zips it up, and then ports it online. So now it will be available as a package greeter test on npm. Now I can go to npm.js. So instead of package/lodash, I can see package/greeter test. Okay. So you can see here that there is a greeter test and it does not have a readme. What you can do is you can also include a readme file. So you can just say new file readme.md, and then this is just say, this is markdown. This is a sample Jupyter package, and then you just need to indicate that within somehow you need to indicate that within the package or JSON. I'm not quite sure. Let's see. Okay, I'm not quite sure how to include that. But there's a way to include the README, and then you can, what you can do is you can just change the version here in package.json, make it 1.0.1, and then publish it once again. Okay. And let's just complete the loop here. I think we're running out of time. So let me just take this greeter test. So let me come back to desktop. So let's say, let's create a folder, greeter test example, npm install greeter test. And now I will just do node. And then what I can do is var greeter underscore test. So I can't use hyphens because hyphen is not valid in a variable name, but I can now do here greeter test. Okay, so now I have greeter test. Greeter test, give it a name. Let's say Akash. Oops, greeter test is not a function. Let's see what it is. Oh, sorry, it has something called default that I need to put in. This is just like a TypeScript detail, right? So greeter test in default is what the send greetings functions is, right? So let me just var send greetings equal to greeter test default. Send greetings to Akash. Yes, it still seems to be some error there. I think what I need to, yeah. I think what I need to do is I should probably do something like this, I'm guessing. Yeah, but I'm not quite sure what the error is here, so I'll have to investigate that. So let me get back to you on that. But what I'll do instead is I'll just publish another version of this 1.0.2 without the Lodash dependency, just to show you very quickly. All right, so now we're publishing 1.0.2. Yeah. Okay. So once again, we require greeter test, get back the default export using send greetings, and then send greetings Akash. Still doing the same thing for some reason. Yeah, before publishing, I need to actually convert it, right? So I did not do that the last time. So I actually need to do the tsc command again. Yeah, so this, what we're doing is I made a change in src, but did not copy it to lib. So I'm once again running tsc that takes index.tx, puts it into lib. So now my lib folder has the right data. And this is one trick you can do. You can do npm version patch, and this will automatically update the package.json file. Npm version patch, and then you can do npm publish once again. Okay, so that is going to publish our next version of the library, and then I'm just going to hope it works this time. Yeah, okay, let's see. Require greeter test, get send greetings, and send greetings Akash, right? So there. Now it says hello Akash and goodbye Akash. And then the reason it's showing it as a string is because I've not done console.log. But if I do console.log, it will say hello and goodbye, right? So basically what we've covered today is the entire process of writing a package using TypeScript, converting it to JavaScript using the TSC compiler, using npm to publish it to the public registry, downloading it with npm, and then using it within another Node.js project. Okay, so that's basically how the flow works. And the reason we're covering this is because Jupyter extensions are actually npm packages. So as Mayank, you might have experienced, you need to be comfortable with how these things work, right? So what I'll suggest is, as a next step for this, maybe in the next session that we do, we can actually dig into the Jupyter extension part a little bit more, talk about how that works. But in the meantime, what I'll suggest is you should try and install Node.js, try out using npm. Npm comes pre-installed with npm. Use the Lodash library maybe once or twice in some functions. Do the TypeScript tutorial so that you understand how this importing, exporting, and the conversion works within TypeScript, and then finally publish an npm package. This is mainly for the people who are working with the Jupyter Lab extension. And then one final thing that I did not mention this time is something called ES6. Okay, so ES6 is so the JavaScript that we normally see, the JavaScript that runs in the browser is called ECMAScript 5, ES5. That is the technical term for it. And ES6 is an extension to the language, which introduces things like the import, export, variables like let, const, and even arrow functions, and a bunch of different things, which is not yet supported by most of the browsers, right? So what we normally do is that while doing our development, we write code in ES6, which has some fancier and better syntax, and then we convert it back to normal JavaScript, similarly, just as we did with TypeScript, right? So essentially, TypeScript is not just a superset of JavaScript, but it's actually a superset of ES6, right? So ES6 has some additional features, and then TypeScript adds types on top of that, types and classes and a bunch of things on top of that, right? So so normally what happens is when you convert from TypeScript, it goes from TypeScript to ES6 and ES6 to JavaScript. So there's that intermediate step which I skipped today. So what I will also suggest for you is to check out ES6. There is a good tutorial here called ES6 in depth. Yeah, this is like from around 2015. So this is a series of articles around ES6 that you should definitely check out. So there is ES6, so that is the introductory one, and then there are like a bunch of other articles in this entire category. Okay, so do check out these as well, right? Again, this is all only mainly for the people who are working with the Jupyter Lab extension, but it's just these are good things to learn either way. Okay, so all right. So next time maybe we'll cover a simple Jupyter Lab extension, but in the meantime, do try and go through these. All right.
Right.
Okay. Great. And regarding your updates, please post your updates for this week on Slack, and whatever questions you have or whatever you're planning to work on. So I think one thing that we can do, regardless of whether we're having the meeting or not, is that on every Monday, please post what you've done in the past week on Slack, and then what you're planning to do in the current week, right? So that will, yeah, that'll just help us keep track, even if we are not having like a proper meeting. All right. Okay.
Perfect.
Cool. So I hope this was helpful. Thanks a lot for joining. And sorry we went over time. I hope none of you missed class.
Yeah. It's a very good tutorial and it's
Very
very
in-depth.
beneficial to the students.
It's
All
very
right,
in-depth.
great.
Thank you.
Great. All right. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. How do